Coles and Woolworths. Together they control 2/3 of the nation's supermarket market. You know what I mean.
Quite clearly, they have excessive market power. We have effectively a duopoly in large parts of Australia.
The supermarket giant's facing 6 separate inquiries into claims of price gouging, anti-competitive behaviour and ripping off suppliers.
We know that when farmers are saying they're getting less for their products, that hasn't necessarily translated through to cheaper prices at the checkout, and it should.
But while the inquiries rumble on,
the time for reviews are over. Let's just get on with it.
Nationals leader David Littleproud has come up with a plan to bring in the big stick.
We need to bring in powers which would strip these big supermarkets of some of their chains, and in fact, even in a geographical level, may even see that some of their stores have to be sold off to competitors to increase competition.
Giving the ACCC more powers to investigate, to prevent mergers, and indeed to break up companies that have gotten too big or force them to sell certain assets. This is an idea that's been around for a long time, frankly.
But the PM says breaking up the grocery giants is just not our vibe.
We're not the old Soviet Union.
According to Comrade Albo, the government shouldn't have that kind of power.
What we have the power to do is to encourage competition and encouraging new entrants.
We'll do what it takes. But the breakup, that hasn't happened much in the Western world. It's not on the agenda.
But other countries, including the US and the UK, do have breakup powers.
Many industrial countries have competition laws much stronger than Australia's, and even threatening the use of those powers can force companies to behave better, even if they're not actually used.
In just 2 years, Australian grocery prices have risen 14%. But Colesworth, as they've been dubbed, says their recent $1 billion profits are thanks to productivity improvements. Who's to blame for the high cost of groceries? They say rising wages, supply costs and energy bills. So just how do we fight for fair prices in this supermarket slugfest?
This power is not going to turn the economy upside down. It's just going to make companies think twice before they engage in some of these very unfair, exploitative practices.
Economist Greg Jericho is from the Australia Institute. Greg, should we have the powers to break up Coles and Woolworths?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think actually most Australians would kind of be shocked that we don't have the powers of what's called divestiture. I mean, it's actually pretty common elsewhere. America certainly has it. And it's a thing that even if we wouldn't use to actually break up Coles and Woolies, it's kind of handy to have in your back pocket in case they really start pushing things and going to a point where you think, right, we need to bring out the nuclear option. And at the moment, we just don't even have that power. So I actually think the government should look at bringing in these divestiture powers.
I'm not an economist, but my question is, why don't Coles and Woolies compete with each other for the lowest price?
Basically because it's not in their interest to do it. I mean, Coles and Woolies control about 2/3 of the entire grocery market. It's actually in their interest to kind of be buddies with each other, and they go through the motions of competing on various things, but really it's more like, okay, we'll put the sale on Pepsi this week, you do Coca-Cola, and next week we'll swap, and it'll all look like we're really competing against each other. But what they're actually doing is they're protecting their profit margins. When they're actually competing for prices, that actually hurts their profits because they're getting less revenue coming in.
Greg, in terms of solutions, and we can hear the birds in the background have some opinions also.
Lorikeets have strong opinions.
If you were in complete control, if you were a dictator and you had all the powers that you needed, what would you do to sort out this duopoly situation?
Actually bring in a national body that looks at prices. The ACCC doesn't have power to go, hang on, why have you increased, say, the price of barbecue chooks by 30% in the past year? What's going on there? Is it really because your costs have increased that much, or are you just taking advantage of the power that you have? And so I think if we actually had a pricing authority that had the power to say, okay, show us your books, one that would put pressure on them, really gives that spotlight on these companies to know, okay, someone is actually looking over our shoulder. We better behave, or the government's going to start getting really antsy and going, hey, have you heard about divestiture powers? They sound really good. I think that's really something that actually would have a strong impact immediately, and certainly not just for the grocery companies.
Greg, so what can we expect to happen to our grocery prices in the next 6 to 12 months? Is anything ultimately going to change?
Oh, look, I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if as a result of the Four Corners episode that we saw this week, that Coles and Woolies perhaps go through a bit of the motions of saying, oh, look at us, we're cutting prices. We really are competing. And then hopefully people will be persuaded that actually there is a real competition and it all goes back to normal. I think what we're also seeing, though, is overall inflation is falling. And as that comes down, it really reduces the ability for Coles and Woolies to jack up prices and people not notice them. So I don't think we're going to see prices going down, but hopefully the prices are not going up as fast, and also hopefully our wages keep going up a bit more than them, so we're still doing okay.
Greg, thank you for providing not completely doom and gloom. We appreciate your time.
No worries, guys. Really good to chat.